kind of fishy to me, so I want to do some digging around on it. This is the Houston Water Director explaining citywide water boil notice. Let me play some of this.
Can you walk me through what the situation is at this moment?
At this moment, the system pressures are above the regulatory requirements. We did have a low pressure event earlier today, and per TC regulation required us to issue a boil water notice.
When did these pressures drop below acceptable levels?
We have monitors in the system that said the incident occurred about 10:30 this morning.
And obviously, we got the alert around 6:45. How do you explain that time gap? Why did it take so long for folks to get notified about this?
I'm sorry, my dogs are barking in the background. So what happened was we had a power disruption in the facility. And when we saw the pressure alarms, at first we thought it was a main break. Then we became notified that the disruption occurred and they had to restart the facility. And all actions were based at that time on trying to restart the plant and see what was happening in the system to make sure that everything stayed safe.
So at this point, that almost 9-hour gap between when the pressures dropped and people were notified via the media now, is there any concern there about the gap where people probably were not boiling their water and they were going on as business as usual?
No, because the reason we're doing the boil water notice is the regulatory requirement. Our system maintained pressure. We never lost pressure fully, so there was never an opportunity for anything to enter our system. They just fell below the regulatory requirements.
So to be clear, when something like this, you're saying, am I hearing you say there's no risk to the public because of what happened or in this time gap?
It is, the boil water notice is out of an abundance of caution because the system lost pressure below the regulatory requirement. And you do want to make sure people are aware that for a time period, we were below the regulatory limit.
Can you walk folks through what are the possibilities of what can happen or why those regulatory requirements exist? What is the danger or the concern when pressure drops below a certain level for the 20 minutes or so that it was below pressure?
So I'm not the full expert on things that can enter a water system, but as I mentioned, our system stayed pressurized. So there was no risk of anything overpressuring and entering your water system.
Yeah. How many people, obviously Houston is the 4th largest city in the country. Can you give me a sense of how many people this boil water notice is impacting? This isn't a neighborhood in the city. This is a boil water notice to the entire city, correct?
Correct. So the majority of the city of Houston is under this boil water notice.
And can you give me a sense of just the scale of that, how many people we're talking?
All of the city has one pressure plane, so you're talking about the entire city.
And so what are the next, do you have any idea as to when folks can go back to business as usual and not have to boil their water?
We are submitting a plan to the TCEQ. Once that's approved, we will begin collecting samples. They take about 18 hours to get the answers back, the analysis of the samples. And so more than likely, this will be lifted early on Tuesday.
The samples.
And in the meantime, what does the city encourage folks to be doing during this time period? Obviously, we got school starting up tomorrow. People will be going to school. It's difficult when you have to boil your water. I'm sure districts are probably making plans as well.
Well, we had the language in the boil water notice. If you're at home or you have the ability to boil your water for about 2 minutes just to ensure its safety. For those other people, we recommend bottled water for consumption.
Gotcha. Is there anything else that you think the folks should know, or the city wants to get across to folks who may be getting this alert on their phones tonight and would be caught off guard or surprised by the notice?
Well, I just want people to know that we take this very seriously. We are activated our plan as soon as we were alerted, trying to ensure that we could recover the facility and get the information out to the public.
In retrospect, are you guys going to be looking at that time gap that was, when the pressure?
He keeps going back to that. What's interesting to me from what she said was it seems like she was saying that it's safe, right, overall. But then she said we won't know until we get samples back. So that means they want to test
Well,
it.
no. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of what she's saying, but I think the whole thing is that before that they can release take the boil water notice off, they have to have so many clean samples to be able to say, because I mean, which she already feels that it's really just a matter of time because there was really not low enough pressure in the system for things to too high or too low for anything to enter the system. So
Right. So if she's feeling confident about that, and she's saying basically it's fine, I wonder because then they're saying that they need to test it for samples. So, but she's saying there's no chance that stuff could have got in there. The pressure kept going. And then I looked, the map is so huge. I wonder if I have that. I don't know if I shared that. I'm going to play this other little video right quick, a short bit of it, while I look and see if I can find that map because it was like the whole Harris County. I don't want to be saying the wrong thing, but it looked like that map was the whole as Harris County, and that's crazy.
Notice impacting all of Houston.
Yeah, what it means is that you should boil all water used for food prep, drinking, and brushing your teeth. Boil the water for at least 2 minutes. Don't use chilled water lines on your fridge, and don't use an automatic ice machine.
Well, ABC 13's Charlie Eckley is live more with why this is happening. Charlie, help us explain this.
Jessica, well, unfortunately for those affected by this boil water notice, it looks like it could be several more hours of having to boil your tap water if you plan to consume it. So according to Mayor Sylvester Turner, he thinks that this notice may be in effect until tonight or even into tomorrow morning. So it's really crucial that you are paying attention to this information if you are in an impacted area. So take a look at your screen here. This is a map of those who are under this boil water notice. It's a pretty large portion there of the Houston area. So we've learned this problem all stems from a power outage that happened around 10:30 a.m. yesterday. The outage affected the East Water Purification Plant. 3 sections.
Wait, let me go back to this map here. I wish they could have been better with this. I saw this earlier briefly, and a lot of people was complaining about this map.
Well,
and
look,
for good reason.
Go ahead.
What I was going to say is who's affected and who's not, and it's got these little pockets. I guess those places, let me turn off this caption. I guess those places have their own.
Question.
Go ahead.
The other question is anybody really affected?
And well, okay. And I the question I have is how long really was it a concern? I'm thinking that because someone was saying something about today is Monday, so Sunday is when it happened, right? So but someone was saying they knew about this before Sunday, that there was an issue with the water. I just feel like they're not telling us everything. That's what I'm saying. Like something is fishy with this. And then because so she said it's all of the city of Houston has one line or whatever she said. So that's another thing that's hard for me to understand. Like you have this huge area, so one plant or whatever, it went below pressure or whatever. And that one place affected this huge area. That's another part that is kind of got me
it's water. I mean, it's not like you can say, hey, I dug this pile of dirt and set it over here. I mean, you never can identify what water was where.
So all of those systems are connected. And how long would it take for the contaminations to spread throughout this whole ass system? That's another thing. This is a lot of space. This is a lot of area.
Probably within an hour. I would say that with the circulation that it's probably within an hour. It could probably be all over the entire city. Like
Well,
maybe even really in minutes. But
from Humble to Friendswood, you know, I
well,
just
that I mean, we're still talking about it within. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, but I mean, is that all Harris County too?
well, that's what I'm saying. This map is funky right here, but this looks like Harris County to me. It looks very similar to the Harris County map to me. Now, I could be wrong. But if you're looking at the map, it looks
Well,
like it ends at
but
Sugarland on the southwest
But I
and
mean, I
south.
think also for precaution, like I mean, they probably stretched it beyond the actual, you know, confines or limits or whatever of the you know, that that water flow where all those different ways it's flowing in and out. Like they probably extended it just to give a safe range of where the possibilities. So they probably extended it a little further just to make sure, which I mean I would say, it's smart. I mean at least, you cover more area than necessary. But
Yeah. So it looks
you
like
know,
Pearland is good. Friendswood is good. It looks like Sugarland for the most part is good. And then it's got this little gap in the middle where Bel Air is, and they seem to be good. So it's like they must be on another system. Galena Park over here is good. Pasadena for the most part is good. Deer Park, Channel View, all that's for the most part is good. Cypress, Katy seems like they're good. There's a little gap here, and I don't know where the hell that is. So, like, that's another problem with this damn map that they gave us. It's like, it seems like they could have done a better job. This whole thing feels like they could have done a better job because a lot of people were saying they got notified by their schools before anybody else notified them. It's like, what kind of system do we have? They do those Amber Alerts, and they hit everybody's phone, What did I see it on? I saw it. I follow the news and stuff, so I got some kind of news alert that said it,
yeah.
and so I don't know. It seems like they
Well,
could
I
have,
don't have mine set up on Houston anymore.
yeah. And look at this. Look at this on the map over here where Atascocita is. That part right there is in the red, and help me understand how the water can have this water over here. It looks like southern part of Atascocita area. That water is connected to this water way the hell over here in Harris County. Help me understand that. It's a huge ass gap. It's like Humble in between, Sheldon is in between, and they're good. But this over here in the Atascocita, that they're in the red too. So they're a part of this water system. How does that work?
Well, bro, I mean, science is pretty good, and I'd hate to underestimate it because I mean, this is really, I guess to some extent how should be, because I mean, I guess you could, because I'm sure you could shut off different systems, different sections from the main system, but if we're talking about something that flows, together and allows it to, to work the way it does, like I think it would have to have some intersectionality to it, like it had to,
If they
you know.
intersect, then that means that they're mixing with the same water, and they should be red on this map. So what I'm saying is, what kind of pipes would they have for these people way the hell over there to be a part of the system? That's what I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. That don't make sense to me.
Well, I
It-
mean, do you know how many millions of gallons flows through the system? Like, I mean, and you just think about, I mean, and it's almost like the bloodline of the city. You
I
know what I'm
get it.
saying?
But what I'm saying is this map here is revealing. Like, it's revealing in a way to me that that like, I understand if it's all connected and it's all together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would it go from one water system and back to another one over here? And how could that one be connected and affected so far away and having to do with the
because
one plant?
because it has one main source.
Well,
Like
that
they would it would have to be. I mean, really as simple as that.
yeah, but those other places in between are getting their water from a different source. So you mean to tell me you got pipes going through a park getting a different water source, and then you go a whole bunch of miles away and they're connected to this source that's really far away with these other with the main city area? I don't understand that. Logistically that doesn't make sense. Let me play some more of this right here.
Water purification plant. 3 sections of the plant lost power, and that's when the water pressure was also affected. So according to the director of Houston Water, the city's pressure system was never completely at zero, but it did fall just below the regulatory limit. And that pressure, of course, is important because that's what prevents integrating the water system. So the guidance right now is to boil tap water for at least 2 minutes for consumption. So that includes if you're making coffee this morning, you need to make sure you're boiling that tap water before you put it into the machine. So the timeline of this has left a lot of people questioning, why did it take so long for the notice to be issued? Well, here's the response from the director of Houston Water.
This is not an instantaneous automatic notice. Just because the power went out does not mean the pressure dropped in the system. We had to verify that that pressure drop was real. We also had to reach out to TCEQ. There are a number of steps in the regulatory process before you issue a boil water notice.
Then she's at the house
Well,
chilling.
yeah, and but I kind of get more of what you're saying, especially after the comment she just made. Like listen to what she said again, and it does sound like because and then I guess also with the idea that you do like I mean I hate when you do shit like that, but now but it makes so much sense though. Like I mean they got these damn things that tell us about what you call it,
The Amber Alerts.
let's just say what flash flood, the amber alerts, flash flood, like you know these different alert systems that could intertwine. Like those messages don't have to just be telling you to buckle your damn seatbelt, you know what I'm saying, all the time. Like it could be notices that goes out, like anybody that's connected to that emergency setup should be able to get those same kind of alerts in a matter of moments, just like we do with when we know a kid or a
Right.
grandmother,
Those
some
the
an
Texas
elderly
system,
is gone missing.
the highway system on Texas is really freaking good. Like it's high tech as hell because you look at those signs and they synchronize across the whole ass state. Something happens in Dallas
Yeah,
and
and
you get what I'm saying? Because they
yeah,
know these interstates are all connected. So they those highways. So on the highway, something happens in Dallas, they're telling you about it in San Antonio and Houston and shit. And in
yeah,
real
yeah,
time, in real time.
real time. And I mean, because like I said, I mean, our traffic system is extremely important. But you would think that knowing about the water system or anything like that, yes, we should know right away so that even if they haven't gotten it figured out exactly what it is, put a warning out there. Hey, potential water contamination. Be let's use a little extra precaution during this short period. Temporarily until we get more information, and then you know which I mean, I get, could, to some extent, I think the government likes to, somewhat control the information so it's not people not going pandemonia. But at the same time, I also know how else they use that type of information, which, like, we all have to be discerning on that. But I really think that in a case like this, if potentially we've gotten some contaminated water, like we should know about that possibility sooner. So
Let me I want to read some comments. I lost my green screen. Pressing too many buttons. I got a lot of screens open too. I want to read some of the comments underneath the video of the lady, the water director lady. Okay, am I sharing? All right. These are comments underneath the video. The Houston water director explains citywide boil notice. First comment, it says, I had no clue about this until my mom called me. I went straight to Kroger to get water, but they will be out soon. Over 2 million people with no drinking water, and the city officials seem to be completely unconcerned. Crazy. Another comment, it says,
Yeah.
her answers were contradictory and confusing. City needs to send out a clarification. She says the system never lost pressure, but then said it went below the regulatory required pressure. And it took 9 hours for the city to send out a boil water notice. Very long delay, and she did not give a good explanation why. She said there was no risk, but at the same time tells the whole city to boil its water. Very confusing. That's what I'm saying.
All right, I need to step out for just a moment. I'll be right back.
All right, I'll read some more. It says, next comment, it says, no accountability, no competence, all apathy. She needs to go. Okay, that's helpful, buddy. Another comment, it says, seriously, I'm still up because my stomach is bothering me. I literally didn't shower and brush my teeth until late this morning. Been washing my hands all day. Ate at a restaurant about 3:30-ish in Bel Air. Then came home and washed dishes and warmed up dinner. Literally moving about as business as usual today, just to now find out about the water about an hour ago. And before that, trying to figure out why is my stomach in knots and my head hurting. I rarely get headaches randomly. I believe y'all when you say that you don't feel well, because I don't. That notice should have come out far sooner. Another comment, it says, we are barely finding out about this. What the F? We need alerts for these types more than a missing child elderly from 4 states over. That's what I was saying. Another comment, if their coverage map is any indication of how the city operates, the city of Houston is totally screwed. Not only does this lady not know what is happening, she doesn't even suspect. He said, if their coverage map, that map is something else. That's what's really jumped. That's the real reason why I wanted to do this show, because I wasn't thinking about this as a thing. You know, it happens all the time, but that map is what jumped out to me, because the whole ass Harris County, and then like something's fishy with this. What is going on? Let me read some more. It says the amount of money that it costs for what it's supposed to be one of the lowest utility bills, and they still can't get it together. Oh yeah, that's the other part of this, because they said they lost power. So what, they didn't have no backup generators? Maybe they do. They don't kick in fast enough. What is it? Just because it was the power went out for a short amount of time and that was long enough for it to lose pressure? Explain this stuff to me. You know, such an important infrastructure should have backup generators and everything ready to go for this kind of situation. Let me read another comment. It says, her summary is illogical. The boil notification was issued because of regulatory requirements, but it took 9 hours to make sure. If the notice was required, it should have gone out as soon as the sensors detected low pressure. No reason why other than that should be taken into account. Well, maybe they have some kind of policies or procedures in place for this kind of situation where they do their checks and stuff. But that's the problem. That's what makes us not trust them, because it's like, y'all not telling us everything. Tell us the procedure. Tell us how it goes. How often does this actually happen? You know, what kind of procedures do y'all have in place? What checks do y'all do? What are y'all checking for? What sensors do y'all have? Let me read another one. It says, why is she acting as if his questions are unreasonable? And how were those notifications issued? Because this video is the first I'm hearing about this. Another comment, that was the cause of, it says, what was the cause of the power outage? Boom, there goes another question. The manager appears to not support the TCEW regulations. Why? What sources could have overpressured the 20 pounds in the system? Why are there not 2 independent sources of power to this critical infrastructure component? Given the state need Given the stated need for eyes-on verification and checking of calibration, if the whole system reported low pressure, did you believe that all the pressure monitors failed the same way at nearly the same time? Like, we got questions. We have questions. I'm not just crazy. I'm glad I'm reading these comments. It makes me feel less crazy. Let me read another comment. It says, with a lower system pressure, there is immediate gaseous quantities that absorb into a liquid phase in a compromised condition, such as a water plant. Example, sulfides, chlorides, etc., etc. There is also the possibility of a plus minus pressures in the outlets and inlets of systems, allowing a significant amount of material such as bacteria or heavy metals into the system. ppm levels of dissolved contaminants could raise above 175 ppm, which is horrible for ingestion. Plus 20 minutes is definitely a long time for pressure disruption, but this is just my guess, hypothesis. This guy obviously knows something. That's why I like to read these comments. They think we're all dumb. They think we're all stupid, and that's why they just tell us whatever the hell they tell us. But we're not. A lot of people out here know stuff. That's why I like to read comments, because I always learn something in the comments. Let me read another one. It says, I have the bubblies right now. By drinking a cup of water from my neighbors, I have a water system at home and never had this problem. Another comment, it says, thanks for the job, Sylvester. You're my favorite cousin. What was that about? Another comment, but wouldn't hurt to just tell us 9 hours ago to boil water until we confirm. Another comment, I appreciate her honesty about the facts. I'm going to just read a few more comments because it's starting to get repetitive. It's this one. It says, the amount of panic on here is pretty ridiculous. Anyone who is familiar with the U.S. regulations would know that the level of conservatism they apply to their thresholds is borderline extreme. So she is basically saying that the threshold for alerting the public was barely met, meaning there is essentially zero chance of contamination. But as always, the comments always start becoming either politically motivated or individuals with little knowledge on the matter. Chill out, everyone. There's nothing to worry about here. And if you're sick, no, it's not because of the water. So please don't use this as an excuse to start the I'm going to file a lawsuit garbage. You know, maybe we are overreacting, you know, but I mean, you can't blame people for being concerned because we use water so much. And what concerns me is how big that map was. So how interconnected this is and how many people are served by this water. It seems to me that they could do the system in a way that will be better, you know, and have it, have compartments, have, safeguards to keep from, if there's a contamination that gets into the system, it shouldn't be able to make its way around the whole as Harris County. Like, it's too many people, it's too many usages going on where you should have some stop points for the water to flow. You know what I mean? As far as they notice a contamination or a low pressure or whatever, any kind of issue that could happen in certain part of the system, then you have safeguards to cut the system from mixing with the rest of it and keep it localized, right? I mean, call me freaking crazy. Another comment, it says, it's timestamp 240. Wait, so the director of water is not an expert on water? Well, you don't expect her to know everything. Like, she's talking about the systems and stuff. All of this stuff is complex with multiple moving parts. So it's going to be somebody else who really knows something about the, she's director. She's like, you know how it goes, almost a politician. So she knows what they tell her. I wanted to go to the Associated Press. No, Houston Water, ABC 13's article. That's what it was. So let's read this article. I want to redo my green screen, but I'd have to go out and come back in for that. Okay, am I sharing? All right. It says, this is ABC News, January 6th. January 6th. What? That can't be right. What are you talking about? November 28, 2022. Okay, 11:57. Houston underwater boil notice after power failure. Mayor Sylvester Turner said the water is safe. Is this a video? It's a 1 minute video, but I want to read the article. It says how to keep, this is the caption underneath. It says how to keep your water safe during a boil water advisory. Some counties may issue a boil water advisory during major storms. Okay, random information. Over 2 million Houston residents are under a water boil notice after a power outage Sunday affected a water treatment plant, officials said. The water pressure dropped below the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality's requirement minimum of 20 psi during a power outage at the East Water Purification Plant around 10:30 a.m. According to the agency, Houston schools were closed Monday because of the order. Houston Mayor Sylvester Turner said the water was safe and the boil order was done to comply with regulations. He tweeted that the city submitted its plan to TCEQ to lift the notice Sunday night. Water samples will subsequently follow, and hopefully we will get the all clear from TCEQ. The city has to wait 24 hours from that point before the boil water notice is suspended. The earliest would be tomorrow night or very early Tuesday morning, Turner tweeted Sunday night. Yvonne William Forrest, Houston's water director, told ABC affiliate KTRK Sunday night that the city's pressure system was never at zero, just below the regulatory limit. That pressure is important because it prevents anything from infiltrating the water system, she said. There are a number of steps in the regulatory process before you issue a boil water notice, and we didn't want to unnecessarily alert the city if we did not have to issue a boil water notice, she told KTRK. Turner said Monday morning the power outage was caused by 2 transformers that malfunctioned. Power was restored around 12:15 p.m. local time, he said. The mayor said 16 sensors fell below 20 psi for 2 minutes, which triggered the emergency, and full water pressure restored above 20 psi at 14 of the 16 locations by 3 p.m. The water samples that were sent to TCEQ have to sit and wait for 18 hours for the city to get the all clear, according to Turner. He said the earliest the boil notice will be rescinded is early Tuesday morning. Turner said the incident will be investigated and apologized to the city, schools, and kids and parents for the cancellations. I can't tell you why it failed. Stuff does happen, and it's unfortunate, he said. I don't think it's worth playing that. Well, let's listen to Turner talk about it in his words, because they did a whole press conference. It's an hour long, so we're just gonna play the beginning of it.
With 2 caveats. This does not apply to Kingwood, and neither does it apply to those who are serviced by the Clear Lake Water Authority. Okay, so Kingwood and those who are serviced by the Clear Lake Water Authority are not impacted by the boil water notice. And let me kind of go over the timeline of events that triggered the boil water notice. At 10:30 a.m. Sunday morning, the East Water Purification Plants 1 and 2 lost power. At 10:50, Plant 3 lost power. And these are the 3 plants located inside the East Water Purification Plant. Just before 11 a.m., the water pressure dipped below the regulatory levels of 35 psi at 21 water pressure monitoring sites. So they dipped below 35 at 11 a.m. At 11 a.m., pressure at 16 of those 21 sites dropped below the emergency regulatory level of 20 psi. So that was at 11 a.m. 16 of the 21 sites dropped below the emergency regulatory level of 20 psi. Pressure rebounded above 20 psi in less than 2 minutes at 14 of the 16 locations. So I want us to kind of make sure we understand the timeline and what was happening here. So at 14 of those 16, where it fell below 20 psi, they remained below 20 psi for less than 2 minutes. The remaining 2 locations of that 16 rose above the 20 psi at 11:30. So 14 were below 20 psi for less than 2 minutes. 2 of the sensors rebounded above the 20 psi in 30 minutes. For 5 of the 21 sensors, they never fell below 20 psi. Okay. A plant electrician arrived at the East Water Purification Plant at 11 a.m. to troubleshoot the problem. Further investigation by the Houston Water found that 2 transformers at Plant 1 went offline due to a ground trip and current overload. The electrical feeder from Plant 3 also experienced a ground fault trip. Both Saber, that's S-A-B-E-R, B as in boy, E-R, the electrical contractor, and Centerpoint Energy were on site to investigate how not one transformer faulted, but the redundant transformer also failed. And what I'm being told, even when you have the grid providing power and you have your generators to step in, when these 2 transformers failed, it prevented the power to the system. Power was restored to plants 1 and 2 at 12:15 p.m. Sunday. I'm sorry, p.m. At 12:15 p.m. on Sunday, and power was restored to Plant 3 at 12:30. So in terms of the power disruption, 2 hours from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. 21 sensors, 16 of them fell below 20 psi. 14 of the 16 stayed below for less than 2 minutes, and 2 stayed below for 30 minutes. Power was restored at 12:30 p.m. Full water pressure was restored to all 3 plants by 3:30 p.m., and all locations were back at 35 psi's. Further investigation and testing on the breakers, transformers, motors, and feeders found a bad cell in Plant 1 transformer. And I have asked for a complete diagnostic review of this system to further verify and to identify how we make sure it does not happen again. The Houston Water field staff verified all pressures across the system. Houston Water, in communication with TCEQ, determined a boil water notice needed to be issued on Sunday evening, and that was somewhere around 6 p.m., 6:40 is when that decision was made. Conversations with TCEQ were taking place from 2:43 p.m. up to 6:40. And it was at that point, based on the data, based on the sensors, that it was a decision was made that a boil water notice was to be issued. And one of the reasons why it took that long, because as you can see, for 14 of the sensors, they remain below 20 psi for less than 2 minutes. And for 2 sensors, they remain below 20 psi for 30. So there were questions as to whether or not even a boil water notice needed to be issued. A decision was made out of abundance of caution to issue the boil water notice, and it was done. Notice was sent to the public at 6:44 p.m. Sunday night. And here's where we stand right now. The TCEQ approved our water sampling plan at 10:41 p.m. Sunday night. And I want to thank TDEM, Texas Department of Emergency Management, and TCEQ for working with the Houston Public Works Department. They approved the water sampling plan at 10:41 p.m. Sunday night. Samples were pulled from 29 locations at 6 a.m. and 9:30 this morning. 2 locations, and out of, again, abundance of caution, just in case if the first sample didn't pan out, then we had another sample ready to go. All the samples arrived at Houston Water Labs by 9:45 morning. The samples will then sit and incubate for at least 18 hours per state regulations, and the first reads of the samples will be taken at 3, that should be 3 p.m.
Well, we'll review it, but the first official read that we can do is at 3 a.m.
At 3 a.m. to determine if the water is free from contamination. Those results will be sent to the TCEQ for verification and to determine if the city can rescind the boil water notice. Although there'll be various readings throughout the day that will give us some indication as to whether or not we anticipate the end result to be a very positive one. We are optimistic the results will come back clean. The TCEQ will notify the city once we can rescind the boil water notice, and it's our hope that we can get a positive word at least late tonight or early on tomorrow morning, because we would love to see schools resume, businesses continue to function and open up if they have had to close, and if there are any surgeries that are having to be postponed, hopefully they can proceed on tomorrow. So that's where we are. Okay, and I will take at this point any questions that you may have. One at a time.
Mr. Mayor, people who live in, say, West Houston, in the 4th largest city, wonder, a plant goes down on the east side. Why do I have to abide by this notice? Can you someone explain the logistics of the water system here?
The East Water Purification.
That's what I was wondering.
Water to pretty much the city as a whole, with the exception of Kingwood and those who receive service from the Clear Lake Water Authority. They have their own sort of systems. But the East Water Purification provides water to the entire city, in addition to some muds that are adjacent, they're very much adjacent. And that's the reason. And even though we don't have any evidence of contamination, and even though the PSI fell below, let's say for 14 of them, less than 2 minutes, and for 2 of them, about 30 minutes, out of abundance of caution, that's why the notice was given to everybody. Yes.
You said you possibly want to make a decision on the boil water notice late tonight. Can you make that decision before the 3 a.m. read of the samples?
Only been working in collaboration with TCEQ. They know that the samples have been collected. They're in the incubation stage right now. During the course of the day, we'll take a look to see whether or not there's any contamination of any kind. We'll continue to work very closely with the TCEQ. In the end, it will be their call. So at the latest, we anticipate clean report coming, let's say 3 a.m. at the latest. Could it be before? Possibly, depending on how TCEQ read the data. Okay? Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on why redundancies did not take over when a transformer failed?
Two transformers failed.
Transformers failed. Or is there a need for an additional redundancy that does not exist in the system?
The first transformer failed, and then the redundant one was the second transformer, which coincidentally and uniquely also failed. So there were 2 transformers. One was the backup to the first. They both failed. And then you do have backup generation. But when you have the 2, and Carol, you tell me if I'm misstating anything, when you have the 2 transformers that failed, one was the backup, and you can connect to the grid, but the power is running, and you can connect to your generators, then you have a very unique and unfortunate situation. Now, I have instructed Public Works to do an overall review of our system, a diagnostic review, to see how we prevent this from happening again. I will tell you we had a similar problem last year, I believe, at the HEC Center, where on a nice day, the power also failed. So that occurred before. This is not the first. It's the first in this particular situation, but the backup was the second transformer for the system, for whatever reason. And I'm not the technical person. I can't tell you why both failed, but stuff. I will say stuff does happen. It's unfortunate. A lot of people were impacted and are impacted. Certainly apologize for that. But we'll do a diagnostic review and work with all of our partners to assess the situation and to mitigate a future occurrence of this kind. Yes.
People all around Houston are obviously very angry today. And one of the questions they are asking is, I know y'all were making a decision during that time in between the outage, during the time between there and the notification, but why couldn't Houstonians have been given any information during that time just so that they could make their own educated decisions?
Well, but that's why we have the process in place. This is a situation in which you had 21 sensors that indicated after there was a power disruption between 10:30 and 12:30. I'm sure. We're starting at 11. I'm sure. At 11 o'clock. 21 sensors indicated that the power would drop below 35 psi. I can tell by looking at it. That doesn't trigger a boil water notice. Okay, that doesn't trigger a boil water notice. And the PSIs didn't just drop automatically when the power was disrupted. It was during the course of the day. So when 21 of the sensors dropped below 35, that didn't trigger boil water notice. When 16 of those 20 dropped below 20 PSIs, okay, and 14 of them dropped below PSI for less than 2 minutes, okay, then still, there was not the thinking that was going to trigger. And 2 of them dropped below PSIs for 30 minutes. So less than 2 minutes for most of them, 14, 30 minutes for 2. And so the thinking was it was not going to trigger a need for a boil water notice. And there was no alarm. And even now, we can't, again, my notion is that the water is safe, but between 2:43 p.m. up to 6:40 p.m., the Houston team, was in collaboration with TCEQ. Everybody's looking at the data. Everybody's looking at the data. A decision was then made out of an abundance of caution, okay, to then issue the boil water notice. And under the normal processes, you have a city, municipality, has 24 hours to issue the boil water notice from the time of the incident. You have 24 hours. So I can understand people being angry, but what I can say to people is that this was a situation that was not being overlooked, ignored. Teams were in, our electrician was in, and as you can see, the power was restored at 12:30 p.m. CenterPoint was looking at it. We were in collaboration with TCEQ, and the decision was made out of an abundance of caution to issue the boil water notice. Okay, I will tell you, having experience in going through Harvey when our Northeast Water Purification Plant was totally underwater. In that particular case, we came close to 20 PSIs, but we never issued a boil water notice. We never did. Okay, so I can understand people's concern when we finally did it, but do understand we had 24 hours in this case. In our collaboration, everybody looking at the data, looking at the sensors and what the read was, a decision was made out of an abundance of caution.
I don't understand how, like he said, it was two units that went under for 30 minutes. So how does that affect the whole ass system? This is where my problem comes in on this whole thing. Like, okay, abundance of caution, I get it, but it's a chance that that somebody's water could be messed up, and it was only like 2 of the units that went down for like 30 minutes. So you got to do a boil water notice for all this huge area. How could that water get over there? It's something they're not telling us.